The massive space station looked like a metal city floating in the darkness of space. It was 10 times bigger than anything humans had ever built. Thousands of alien ships moved around it like busy insects. The sight made Captain Robert Hayes feel very small as his ship, the Unity, approached the station. This was supposed to be the greatest day in human history. First contact with the galaxy's rulers. Hayes had practiced his speech 100 times. He carried gifts from Earth and messages of peace from every nation. His crew of 50 had trained for 3 years just for this moment. The radio crackled to life. An alien voice spoke in perfect English, but the tone was cold. "Human vessel, you will dock at Bay 712. Do not deviate from the assigned path. Your weapon systems will remain powered down." Hayes frowned. The tone reminded him of someone talking to a disobedient child, but he followed orders. The Unity was guided through a maze of metal corridors until it reached a small docking bay. Through the windows, Hayes could see alien workers pointing at his ship and making what looked like jokes. The docking process took 2 hours. When Hayes and his team finally walked into the station, they found themselves in a waiting room that looked like a government office. The chairs were too small for humans. The air smelled strange. Alien creatures walked past the windows, but none even looked at the humans. After 3 more hours of waiting, a door opened. A tall, pale alien with 4 arms walked in. Its skin looked like polished stone. Its eyes were black and showed no emotion. Behind it came 2 other aliens that looked like walking lizards covered in scales. "I am Chancellor Vorth of the Cridian Empire," the pale alien said. "I speak for the Galactic Council. You may present your request." Hayes stood up straight and began his carefully prepared speech about friendship, trade, and joining the galactic community. But Vorth held up one hand to stop him after just 30 seconds. "Enough," Vorth said. "We have already studied your species and your pathetic technology. Your ships use chemical rockets. Your weapons fire metal bullets. Your computers are barely capable of basic calculations. We find it amusing that you believe you are ready for galactic civilization." One of the lizard aliens made a sound that might have been laughter. "Their largest ship has less firepower than our cargo vessels," it said. Hayes felt his face turn red with anger, but he kept his voice steady. "We may not be as advanced as you, but we are willing to learn. Humanity has much to offer. We are creative, determined, and resourceful." Vorth's expression didn't change. "Yes, we have observed these qualities. They make you potentially dangerous in the future. But for now, you are nothing more than clever animals playing with fire." The Chancellor walked to a wall display that showed a map of the galaxy. Thousands of star systems glowed in different colors. "The Galactic Council has maintained peace and order for 20,000 years, Vorth said. "We do this through careful control of technology, resources, and population growth. Chaos species like yours are not permitted to spread unchecked." Hayes felt a chill run down his spine. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that membership in the Galactic Council is not available to your species," Vorth replied. "However, we are prepared to offer you protected status under Cridian supervision. Your world will provide raw materials and labor. In return, we will protect you from the dangers of the galaxy and prevent you from destroying yourselves with technology you do not understand." The other humans in Hayes' team shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Amanda Cross, the ship's science officer, spoke up. "You're talking about making us slaves." Vorth turned his black eyes toward her. "We prefer the term managed species. Many civilizations have thrived under our guidance for thousands of years. You will be fed, housed, and kept safe. Your population will be limited to sustainable levels. Your natural aggression will be channeled into useful work." Hayes stepped forward. "And if we refuse?" "Then you will be classified as a rogue species," Vorth said. "Rogue species are eliminated before they can threaten galactic stability. We have done this 47 times in the past 10,000 years." The room fell silent except for the hum of the station's systems. Hayes looked at his team. They all wore expressions of shock and anger. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. "We need time to consider your offer," Hayes said finally. "You have 7 days," Vorth replied. Return to your world and consult with your leaders. But understand this. The decision has already been made. You will accept protected status, or you will be eliminated. There is no third option. The meeting ended abruptly. The aliens left without another word. Hayes and his team were escorted back to their ship by guards who watched them like dangerous criminals. As the Unity pulled away from the station, Hayes stared out at the thousands of alien ships surrounding them. Dr. Cross was busy at her workstation, recording everything she had observed. "Robert," she said quietly, "I managed to get scans of their technology while we were docked. Some of their systems aren't as advanced as they want us to believe." "What do you mean?" Hayes asked. "Their computers are fast, but they're not creative," she explained. "They follow the same patterns over and over, and their weapons, they're powerful, but they're designed for fighting enemies who use similar technology. I think they haven't had a real war in centuries." Hayes nodded slowly. "Start analyzing everything you collected. Every scan, every measurement, every conversation. If we only have 7 days, we need to make them count." As the Unity began its long journey back to Earth, Hayes composed his report for the world government. He would have to tell humanity that their dreams of joining the galactic community had been crushed. But he would also tell them something else. The aliens had made a mistake. They had shown humanity exactly what they were dealing with. The galaxy thought humans were just clever animals. They had no idea what humans could accomplish when their survival was at stake. Hayes smiled grimly as Earth grew larger in the view screen. The Galactic Council was about to learn a very important lesson about underestimating humanity. The hidden facility on the dark side of the moon looked like any other mining operation from the outside. But inside, Dr. Amanda Cross worked 18 hours a day in the most secret laboratory in human history. 5 years had passed since the humiliating meeting with the Galactic Council. 5 years of pretending Earth had accepted its fate while secretly preparing for war. Cross held up a small device that glowed with blue energy. It was no bigger than her thumb, but it contained enough power to level a city block. The alien technology sample they had stolen from the space station had finally been reverse engineered. Now humanity could build weapons that would make the Cridians pay attention. "How many more can we produce?" asked Admiral Thomas Kane as he entered the lab. The Admiral looked older than his 50 years. Leading humanity's secret war preparations had aged him quickly. "We can make 100 per day now," Cross replied. "But that's not the important part. I figured out how their quantum fold drives work. We can build ships that are faster than anything the Council has." Kane nodded with satisfaction. For 5 years he had been building the Shadow Fleet in hidden bases throughout the solar system. Asteroid mining stations that were really shipyards, lunar facilities that manufactured weapons instead of scientific equipment, deep space platforms that trained pilots in zero-gravity combat. The fleet now numbered over 300 ships, all built with hybrid technology that combined human engineering with alien principles. The Council thought humans were still using chemical rockets. They had no idea that Earth now possessed the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. Commander Lisa Park walked into the lab carrying a datapad. She had just returned from her latest intelligence mission to the edge of Council space. Her ship was disguised as a simple cargo vessel, but it carried the most advanced sensors humanity had ever built. "What did you learn?" Kane asked her. "The Council is planning something big," Park replied. "I intercepted communications between Cridian fleet commanders. They're moving ships into attack positions around our solar system. They're not going to wait for us to decide about their protection offer." Cross looked up from her work. "How long do we have?" 6 months, maybe less," Park said. "But there's more. The Council isn't as united as they pretend to be. Some of the younger species are getting tired of Cridian control. The Alteran delegation has been asking questions about human technology. They think we might be more advanced than the Cridians claimed." Kane smiled for the first time in weeks. "Good, we can use that. What about their military capabilities?" "They're strong but predictable," Park explained. "Their tactics haven't changed in centuries. They rely on massive ships with heavy armor and slow-firing weapons. They expect their enemies to line up and fight them in formation. I don't think they've ever faced an enemy that uses guerrilla tactics." The Admiral walked to a wall display that showed the positions of the Shadow Fleet. Red dots marked hidden bases throughout the solar system. Blue dots showed patrol routes that would bring the fleet together when the time came for battle. "Dr. Cross, how soon can you have the new weapons installed on all our ships?" Kane asked. 2 months, she replied. "But Admiral, I need to tell you something else. I've been working on a special project, something that could end this war quickly." Cross led them to another part of the lab, where a large device sat covered by a protective sheet. She pulled the sheet away to reveal what looked like a torpedo, but it glowed with the same blue energy as the small device she had shown them earlier. "I call it a quantum phase torpedo," she explained. "It can pass through their shields like they don't exist. One of these can destroy their biggest ships with a single hit." Kane stared at the weapon in amazement. "How many can you make?" "That's the problem. The materials are very rare. I can make maybe 50 of them. We'll have to use them carefully." Park was studying tactical data on her pad. "If we can destroy their command ships, the rest of their fleet will be confused. These aliens rely on central command structures. They don't train their junior officers to think independently." "Then that's our strategy," Kane decided. "We let them come to us. We let them think they're winning. Then we hit them with everything we have all at once." The three of them spent the next hour reviewing battle plans. Humanity's strategy would be different from anything the galaxy had seen before. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, they would use hit-and-run tactics. Small groups of fast ships would attack and retreat, drawing the Council fleet deeper into the solar system. Meanwhile, the main Shadow fleet would wait hidden behind the moon and in the asteroid belt. When the enemy was fully committed to the attack, humanity would spring their trap. Cross returned to her work while Kane and Park discussed troop movements. The scientist had one more secret project that she hadn't told them about yet. She was working on something that would give humanity an even bigger advantage, an artificial intelligence that could adapt to enemy tactics faster than any alien computer system. The AI was still experimental, but early tests showed it could predict enemy movements with amazing accuracy. If it worked in battle, the Council fleet would find themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to know their every move before they made it. As the weeks passed, more intelligence reports came in from Park's spy missions. The Council was definitely planning to attack Earth. They had assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. Over 2,000 ships were moving toward the solar system. The news should have been terrifying, but Kane felt oddly calm. For 5 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. Every ship had been tested. Every weapon had been calibrated. Every pilot had trained until they could fly their ship with their eyes closed. Most importantly, the aliens still had no idea what they were really facing. They thought they were attacking a primitive species with obsolete technology. They expected an easy victory that would serve as a warning to other species who might challenge Council authority. Instead, they were about to discover that humanity had spent 5 years learning everything about galactic technology, politics, and military tactics. They had found weaknesses in systems that had remained unchanged for thousands of years. The galaxy had mocked humanity for being different. Now they would learn that being different could be a strength. While alien civilizations had grown comfortable and predictable, humanity had remained creative, adaptable, and most of all, angry. Kane looked out at the stars and smiled grimly. The Council fleet was coming, but they were heading straight into the most carefully planned ambush in galactic history. Soon the entire galaxy would know what happened when you threatened humanity's survival. Earth's morning sky blazed with the light of 1,000 alien ships. The Galactic Council fleet had arrived exactly when Commander Lisa Park's intelligence reports predicted they would. From her hidden observation post on Mars, Park watched the massive vessels take formation at the edge of the solar system. The enemy fleet was impressive. Cridian dreadnoughts the size of small cities floated in perfect geometric patterns. Smaller escort vessels swarmed around them like protective insects. Park counted over 2,000 ships in total. It was the largest military force the galaxy had seen in centuries. Chancellor Vorth's voice echoed across all communication channels, speaking in dozens of languages, to ensure every human could understand his message. People of Earth, your time of independence has ended. You rejected our generous offer of protection 5 years ago. Now you will face the consequences of your arrogance. The alien leader's image appeared on screens across the planet. He looked the same as he had during that humiliating first meeting. Pale, emotionless, and completely confident in his superiority. We offer you one final chance to surrender, Vorth continued. Submit to Council authority, and you will be relocated to designated colony worlds where you will work for the benefit of galactic civilization. Refuse and your species will be eliminated completely. What happened next surprised the Council fleet. Earth remained completely silent. No desperate pleas for mercy. No frantic attempts to negotiate. No terrified broadcasts from human leaders. The planet simply ignored them as if the greatest military force in galactic history wasn't worth acknowledging. Admiral Thomas Kane watched the enemy from his hidden command center inside the moon. For 5 years he had dreamed of this moment. The aliens thought they were dealing with the same primitive humans they had humiliated before. They had no idea how much everything had changed. All Shadow Fleet units maintain radio silence, Kane ordered quietly. Let them come to us. The Council fleet began moving toward Earth after waiting an hour for a response that never came. Their formation was exactly what Park's intelligence reports had predicted. Heavy ships in the center, escorts on the flanks, scouts moving ahead to detect any human resistance. The first contact came when the scouts reached the orbit of Jupiter. A small group of human ships appeared to challenge them. These vessels looked like upgraded versions of the chemical rocket technology the Council remembered. They fired primitive missiles and laser weapons that barely scratched the aliens' shields. The human ships were destroyed quickly and easily. The alien commanders congratulated each other on facing such pathetic resistance. Some of them made jokes about how this would be easier than their war games. But Dr. Amanda Cross was watching from her secret laboratory, and she was smiling. Those ships had been decoys, filled with recording equipment instead of human crews. They had been designed to be destroyed. Their real purpose was to study how the alien weapons worked in actual combat. The information they gathered in those few minutes of battle was worth more than years of theoretical research. Cross now knew exactly how to calibrate humanity's shields to resist Council weapons. More importantly, she had confirmed that the aliens were using the same tactics and technology they had used for centuries. The Council fleet continued toward Earth, growing more confident with each passing hour. They encountered a few more groups of human ships, all of which were destroyed just as easily as the first. The alien commanders began to think this might be the shortest war in galactic history. What they didn't realize was that every destroyed human ship had been a sacrifice to gather intelligence. Each battle taught humanity something new about alien tactics, weapon timing, and communication patterns. The AI systems that Cross had developed were learning and adapting with each encounter. When the Council fleet reached the orbit of Mars, they finally saw what looked like serious resistance. A formation of 50 human ships waited for them in a defensive position. These vessels looked more advanced than the earlier scouts, but they were still vastly outnumbered. The battle that followed seemed to confirm everything the aliens believed about human inferiority. The human ships fought bravely, but were overwhelmed by superior numbers and firepower. Within 2 hours, all 50 vessels had been destroyed or disabled. Chancellor Vorth broadcast another message to Earth. As you can see, resistance is futile. Your finest warships are nothing against Council technology. Surrender now and spare your people unnecessary suffering. Again, Earth remained silent. But Commander Park was not silent in her hidden base. She was coordinating the most complex military operation in human history. Every destroyed ship had been positioned exactly where she wanted it. Every retreat had drawn the enemy deeper into the solar system. Every apparent defeat had been part of a larger plan. The Council fleet was now spread out across millions of kilometers, stretched thin by their pursuit of retreating human forces. Their scouts were far ahead of their main battle groups. Their supply ships were lagging behind. For the first time in the battle, they were vulnerable. That was when Admiral Kane gave the order that changed everything. Shadow Fleet, decloak and attack. All units. Weapons free. The space around the alien fleet suddenly filled with new contacts. Hundreds of advanced human warships appeared as if they had materialized out of nothing. They had been hiding behind asteroids, inside nebula clouds, and even within the shadow of Earth's moon. The aliens found themselves surrounded by an enemy they never knew existed. These weren't the primitive ships they had been destroying all day. These were vessels that moved faster than anything in the Council fleet, carried weapons that could penetrate their shields, and used tactics that no galactic civilization had seen before. The first wave of quantum phase torpedoes struck before the aliens could even react. Cross's special weapons passed through the Council's shields like they were made of air. Massive Krydian dreadnoughts that had never been damaged in battle suddenly found themselves with gaping holes in their hulls. Park led the first attack squadron personally. Her ship, the Defiance, had been built specifically for this battle. It was fast enough to outrun any Council vessel and armed with enough firepower to cripple ships 10 times its size. Target their command ships first, she ordered her pilots. Cut off their communications and their coordination will fall apart. The human attack was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Instead of forming battle lines and trading shots like civilized species, the humans swarmed their enemies. Like angry wasps, they hit and ran, struck from unexpected angles and disappeared before the aliens could return fire effectively. Chancellor Vorth's confident voice was replaced by confused orders and desperate requests for reinforcements. The Council fleet, which had expected an easy victory, suddenly found itself fighting for survival against an enemy that seemed to anticipate their every move. The tide of battle turned in minutes. Ships that had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years were being systematically destroyed by vessels they had dismissed as primitive toys. The Great Council fleet, pride of galactic civilization, was being torn apart by humans who weren't supposed to be capable of real warfare. As alien ships began exploding all around him, Vorth finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. Humanity hadn't spent 5 years cowering in fear. They had spent 5 years preparing for war. And now, the wolves were awake. The bridge of Chancellor Vorth's flagship shook violently as another human torpedo found its target. The proud Krydian leader gripped his command chair as alarms wailed throughout the massive ship. Around him, his officers struggled to understand what was happening to their invincible fleet. "Damage report," Vorth shouted over the noise. "Forward shields at 30%. His tactical officer replied, fear obvious in his voice. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. We've lost main communications with the escort fleet." Vorth stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Red markers showed the positions of destroyed Council ships. In just 2 hours of battle, humanity had eliminated nearly half of his fleet. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for centuries were being cut down like wheat before the harvest. The humans fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Their ships moved in coordinated swarms, attacking from multiple directions at once. When the Council forces tried to target them, they would vanish behind asteroids or use some kind of cloaking technology that made them invisible to scanners. "Sir, the Alteran battle group is requesting permission to retreat," his communications officer reported. "Retreat?" Vorth snarled. "We outnumber them 2 to 1. "Not anymore, sir," the officer replied quietly. "Current estimates show the human fleet has over 400 active vessels. Our numbers are down to approximately 1,200 and falling rapidly." From her command ship, Admiral Lisa Park watched the battle unfold exactly as humanity had planned. The Council fleet was in complete chaos. Their rigid formations had broken apart. Their commanders were issuing contradictory orders. Some alien ships were even firing on each other by mistake. "Focus fire on their command vessels," Park ordered her squadron leaders. "Every capital ship we destroy makes their coordination worse." The human strategy was working perfectly. Instead of trying to match the aliens in a direct confrontation, they had turned the battle into a series of small engagements. Human ships would appear, destroy a target, and disappear before the enemy could respond effectively. Dr. Amanda Cross monitored the battle from her laboratory, watching as her AI systems predicted enemy movements with frightening accuracy. The artificial intelligence had analyzed thousands of hours of alien tactical data. It could now anticipate Council fleet movements minutes before they happened. Admiral Kane cross-reported over the command channel. The AI is showing a 70% probability that the enemy will try to break through our center formation in the next 10 minutes. Understood, Kane replied from his flagship hidden behind Earth's moon. All reserve units prepare to intercept. The predicted attack came exactly when the AI said it would. A group of Krydian heavy cruisers tried to punch through the human lines and reach Earth directly, but they flew straight into a trap. 50 human vessels were waiting for them with quantum phase torpedoes ready. The cruisers never had a chance. The advanced human weapons tore through their armor like paper. In minutes, ships that had taken decades to build were reduced to floating wreckage. Chancellor Vorth finally realized his fleet was doomed. The humans had been preparing for this battle much longer than anyone had suspected. Their technology was not primitive, it was revolutionary. Their tactics were not random, they were brilliant. Open a communication channel to the human fleet, Vorth ordered reluctantly. Sir? His communications officer asked in surprise. Do it. A few moments later, Admiral Kane's image appeared on the main screen. The human leader looked calm and confident, completely different from the defeated diplomat who had begged for membership 5 years earlier. Chancellor Vorth, Kane said with a slight smile. I believe you wanted to discuss terms? Admiral, surely we can reach some kind of agreement, Vorth replied, trying to maintain his dignity. The Council is prepared to offer humanity full membership status, equal representation, full access to galactic technology, complete autonomy for your species. Kane's expression didn't change. You mean the same things you refused to give us 5 years ago? The same membership you said we were too primitive to deserve? That was a misunderstanding, Vorth said desperately. We underestimated your capabilities. We are prepared to correct that error. I'm afraid it's too late for negotiations, Kane replied coldly. You gave us an ultimatum, accept slavery or face elimination. You chose to solve your problems with violence. Now you get to live with the consequences. The communication ended abruptly. Kane had heard enough lies from the Galactic Council. It was time to finish what they had started. The final phase of the battle was more massacre than warfare. The remaining Council ships tried to retreat, but human vessels pursued them relentlessly. The aliens discovered that their enemies were not only better fighters but also faster. There was no escape from humanity's wrath. Park led the pursuit personally, her ship hunting down fleeing Council vessels like a predator tracking wounded prey. Each enemy ship she destroyed sent a message to the galaxy. The age of Krydian dominance was over. Commander, her tactical officer reported. Long-range sensors show Council reinforcements approaching from the Rigel sector. Looks like about 500 ships. Park smiled grimly. Signal Admiral Kane. Tell him it's time to show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of. Within hours, the battle for Earth was over. The great Council fleet that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was completely destroyed. Only a few dozen ships had managed to escape, and they carried news of humanity's victory to every corner of galactic space. But the victory at Earth was just the beginning. Kane had no intention of stopping now that humanity had the advantage. The Shadow Fleet had been preparing for more than just a defensive battle. They had built ships not just to protect Earth, but to carry war to their enemies. As rescue crews searched for survivors among the wreckage of the Council fleet, construction yards throughout the solar system began producing new vessels at an unprecedented rate. Humanity had spent 5 years building their first fleet in secret. Now they would build their conquest fleet in the open for everyone to see. The message to the galaxy was clear. Earth was no longer asking for permission to exist. Humanity was taking its place in the galactic community by force. And anyone who stood in their way would learn what happened when you awakened sleeping giants. Chancellor Vorth, now a prisoner aboard Kane's flagship, stared out at the wreckage of his proud fleet. For the first time in his long life, he truly understood fear. The humans had not just defeated the Council, They had humiliated them. And judging by the look in Admiral Kane's eyes, this was only the beginning of humanity's revenge. The galaxy had mocked them, threatened them, and tried to enslave them. Now it would learn to fear them instead. The ancient Krydian homeworld of Krydios Prime had never seen warships in its skies. For 10,000 years, it had been the untouchable center of galactic power, protected by distance, politics, and the strongest fleet in known space. Now, human vessels moved through its atmosphere like predators claiming new territory. Admiral Lisa Park stood on the observation deck of her flagship as it descended through the planet's pink clouds. Below, the magnificent crystal cities of the Krydians stretched to the horizon. Towers that had stood for millennia gleamed in the light of twin suns. It was beautiful, ancient, and completely helpless. All resistance has ceased, her tactical officer reported. The remaining Krydian defense fleet has surrendered. The planetary government is requesting terms for capitulation. Park nodded without taking her eyes off the alien world. 6 months had passed since the victory at Earth. In that time, the human fleet had swept through Council space like an unstoppable storm. One by one, the species that had mocked humanity found themselves under siege by ships they couldn't match and tactics they couldn't counter. The war had been shorter than anyone expected. The Council's greatest weakness was the same thing that had made them powerful: their dependence on central authority and rigid hierarchy. When humanity shattered their command structure, the rest of their civilization collapsed like a house built on sand. Dr. Amanda Cross materialized as a hologram next to Park, broadcasting from her new laboratory on Earth's moon. Behind her, teams of scientists worked around the clock to analyze captured alien technology and integrate it with human systems. The Alteran delegation has accepted our terms, Cross reported. They're willing to join the new Federation in exchange for protection from Krydian retaliation. That makes them the 5th species to switch sides this month. What about the others? Park asked. The younger civilizations are eager to work with us, Cross explained. They've been under Council control for centuries and see humanity as liberators. The older species are more stubborn, but they're also more afraid. They remember what happened to species that opposed the Council in the past. Admiral Thomas Kane's voice came through the communication system from his flagship in orbit around Earth. Park, what's the status on Krydios Prime? Total surrender, Park replied. Their military is destroyed, their government has collapsed, and their population is in shock. Chancellor Vorth was right about one thing. They never imagined this could happen to them. Good. Begin implementing Phase 3 of the integration plan. Phase 3 was humanity's masterstroke. Instead of simply conquering their enemies, they offered them something the old Council never had: a chance to evolve. Species that accepted human leadership would gain access to new technologies, new trade opportunities, and most importantly, a voice in their own destiny. Those who refused would face isolation, economic blockade, and eventual conquest. It was the same choice the Council had once given humanity, but with a crucial difference. Humans actually meant what they said about cooperation and progress. The transformation of galactic civilization proceeded rapidly. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists to solve problems that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Diseases that had killed millions were cured with hybrid medical technology. Resource shortages ended as human logistics networks distributed supplies more efficiently than the old Council system. Most surprising to many aliens was humanity's approach to diversity. While the Council had demanded conformity and submission, humans celebrated differences and encouraged innovation. Alien cultures that had been suppressed for generations suddenly found themselves free to develop their own paths forward. Park walked through the corridors of her ship as it prepared to land on Krydios Prime. Her crew was a mixture of humans and aliens working together with an efficiency that would have amazed the old Council. The integration was happening faster than anyone had predicted. She stopped at the holding area where Chancellor Vorth had been kept as a prisoner since his capture. The former galactic leader looked older and more fragile than when she had last seen him. The weight of his civilization's defeat had aged him rapidly. "You wanted to see me?" Park asked as she entered his cell. Vorth looked up with eyes that held no trace of his former arrogance. "I wanted to understand," he said quietly. "How did we miss it? How did we fail to see what humanity was becoming?" Park sat down across from him. "You saw exactly what you expected to see. You had ruled for so long that you forgot other species could change and grow. You thought the galaxy was static, that nothing would ever challenge your authority. But your technology," Vorth began. "Our technology came from studying yours," Park interrupted. "Everything we built was based on principles we learned from Council science. The difference was that we improved on it instead of just copying it. We adapted it to fit our needs instead of forcing ourselves to fit the technology." Vorth was silent for a long moment. "What will happen to my people?" "The same thing that will happen to every species in the galaxy," Park replied. "They'll have the chance to be part of something better. The Cridians are brilliant engineers and administrators. Under the old system, that brilliance was wasted on maintaining an empire that couldn't change. Under our system, it will be used to build a future none of us can imagine yet." The former chancellor shook his head. "You speak as if this was inevitable." "Maybe it was," Park said as she stood to leave. "The Council created a galaxy where the only choices were submission or destruction. Humanity chose a third option, revolution, and now everyone gets to benefit from that choice." As her ship landed in the capital city of Critias Prime, Park could see crowds of aliens watching from the streets. Some looked frightened, others curious, but many seemed hopeful. The old order had brought them security but no progress. The new order promised both change and opportunity. The Terran Federation that emerged from humanity's victory was unlike any government the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of a rigid hierarchy controlled by one species, it was a dynamic alliance where all members had a voice in decisions that affected them. The Federation's capital remained on Earth, but regional centers were established on dozens of worlds throughout former Council space. Each species contributed its strengths while learning from others. Trade flourished, scientific progress accelerated, and for the first time in millennia, the galaxy began expanding toward the unknown regions beyond its borders. Dr. Cross stood in her laboratory watching the launch of humanity's greatest achievement. Yet, an exploration fleet carrying mixed crews of humans and aliens toward distant galaxies. The ships were marvels of hybrid technology, combining the best innovations from dozens of species into vessels capable of journeys that would have been impossible under the old system. "Do you think they'll find anyone out there?" her assistant asked. Cross smiled as she watched the ships disappear into hyperspace. "I hope so, and if they do, I hope those new civilizations are smarter than the Council was, because if they try to threaten or enslave anyone in our galaxy, they're going to learn the same lesson the Cridians did." The galaxy had mocked humanity for being different, for being chaotic, for refusing to accept their place as a lesser species. But those differences had become humanity's greatest strengths. Where other civilizations saw problems, humans saw opportunities. Where others accepted limitations, humans found ways to transcend them. Years passed, and the Terran Federation grew stronger with each passing season. New species joined willingly, drawn by the promise of progress and the reality of freedom. Old enemies became valued allies as they discovered the benefits of cooperation over domination. Chancellor Vorth, now serving as an advisor to the Federation, Council often reflected on the irony of his situation. The species he had tried to enslave had instead liberated his people from the stagnation of their own success. The Cridians were now among humanity's most enthusiastic partners, their ancient wisdom combined with human innovation to achieve things neither could have accomplished alone. The message was clear to anyone who cared to listen. Underestimate humanity at your peril. They had been dismissed as primitive animals, but they had proven to be evolution in action. They were the galaxy's future, and that future belonged to anyone wise enough to join them in building it. In the depths of space, beyond the edge of known civilization, ancient watchers observed the changes sweeping through the galaxy. Some were pleased by what they saw, others were concerned, but all agreed on one thing: the universe had just become a much more interesting place. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again